Hello friends, how are you all? Fine? Today we will discuss Ind AS 40, the second video. I didn't explain much in the previous video. I explained two things. I explained concept 1, meaning of IB. The second concept was out of scope. What is IP? Is it land, building or both? We were not talking about land or building but about objective, okay? Either your rental should be the objective or long-term appreciation. And if there is any other objective other than this one, then we will study land and building in another Ind AS. If you remember, I told you 7 examples in the class. You will need Ind AS 16 for business purpose. You have to use Ind AS 41 for agriculture. While in minerals, oils and so on, to extract them, use Ind AS 106. For sale, use Ind AS 105 and for sale in future, use Ind AS 2. For different objectives, we have to use different Ind AS, okay? Moreover, I gave you a 1-hour video but I did not explain you much in it. So students, today I am going to extend some time. 1-hour video is not enough. I will have to increase the duration a bit, okay? We will get regular speed in few classes. What will I teach today? I have 2 concepts to teach you. Entire lecture is theoretical. But if you don't understand, you will have issues in practicals. Because when we understand the theory, that's our base for questions. Therefore, students, create a new heading. So today, I am going to teach you something special. You have to pay attention. I hope you will study with dedication. I will start concept number 3. Relation of Ind AS 40 with if you find my speed too slow, you can increase the speed. There will be no problem, but students, do not forward and do not skip it. And do not commit any loss. Put a tick on this and write very, very important on this because it's important. Important. If I consider any concept to be this important, then how can we compromise on its understanding? Let's discuss relation of Ind AS 40 with Ind AS 116. You may think, where did this 116 come from? In this concept, you will understand the linking on your own. Let's begin. Let's start. In the previous video, land, building, or both, I told you this. So this had 2 objectives. And if you want to use Ind AS 40 here, we had 2 objectives. One objective was rental and second was of appreciation. Right? Now I have a question for you. If I have purchased a property, my only objective is appreciation. Listen students, I bought a property and my only objective is appreciation. Tell me that do we need to put in any effort to earn that appreciation? What should we do? You buy a property. Then forget it. You will check its market value after few years. So guys, you would have received few appreciation based on the market. What is appreciation? Property grows over the period by itself. Let's see example. Let's say I bought a flat or bought a villa. Or I bought a shop in a shopping mall. Okay? Forget about it. Okay? Property is there. Rates will increase on its own. There is inflation, rates will increase. But I'm trying to make you understand that what is our effort to earn appreciation? Our effort is 0. Why? Because appreciation comes automatically, you need to invest. So students, when appreciation comes automatically, what do we do? Nothing. Buy property. Investment property to bank. Then sell bank to property. The difference between the selling price and the purchase price will be your profit. you don't need to put any effort for appreciation, right? But students, if we talk about the rental now, earning rental is not that easy. If you want to earn rental from any property, to earn rental, you need a tenant. I hope it's clear. And as soon as I use the word that I need a tenant, it should click in your mind that we are talking about the lessee. And as soon as I use the word lessee, then immediately you should remember that lessor and lessee are two parties. Lessor and lessee are two parties. Together, they both create a lease agreement. Clear? Students, tell me that how can your property be leased without a lease agreement? If I want rent, I need a tenant. In standard language, a tenant is called lessee. We call the owner as lessor. The one who owns the asset is the lessor. Occupant is the lessee. We term it as tenant. They both will first sign a lease agreement between them. And as soon as the lease agreement is ready to be signed, Ind AS 116 will come into existence. Why? Because under Ind AS 116, it is based on lease accounting. If any entity wanted to know or wants to know that what a lease is, how many types of lease are there, how to do lease account, for that we can use Ind AS 116. Ind AS 116. Therefore, if you want to earn rental, then you have to study the relation within AS 116. Okay guys? I assure you, CA final students memorize without understanding concepts. And to what extent does Ind AS 40 work? And from where does 116 begin? You should know that what is covered in the Ind AS 40 and what is all covered in Ind AS 116. Hence, I have to explain the relation. Therefore, this will help you understand the limitations of Ind AS 40 and where does Ind AS 116 applies. Both are related to each other. If rent is received, 116 is applied. When we talk about property, 40 will be used. You should know which Ind AS will work where. I want to explain what is their relation. The relation. I haven't explained anything yet. I am explaining reason behind concept number 3. Just because of lease agreement. Because you will have to create lease agreement. You will receive rental income after lease agreement. Lease agreement is made as per Ind AS 116. Therefore, linking is very, very important. Shall we begin? Let's start. When I was talking about the Ind AS 116, Sir. What happened? We haven't studied Ind AS 116. So what do we know about Ind AS 116? And I also have to teach you about the Ind AS 116. I am teaching you Ind AS 40 as well, and I know how to do it, don't worry. If you haven't studied Ind AS 116, I won't discuss anything that you don't know about it. And whatever I tell you will be enough for you. And one more thing guys, this Ind AS 116 exists only in the module 1. The first module is on assets and liabilities. This includes Ind AS 116 and we have to study it as well. Listen to the basic understanding of Ind AS 116 that I want to convey. Ind AS 116 is about lease agreement. Okay? The lease as per 116. There are two ways to execute this. Any lease agreement. It can be created in two ways. So either it's an operating lease or a finance lease. Okay students? Hence, a lease is a rent agreement. I hope it's clear. This rent agreement is done to earn rental and this concept is called lease agreement. So any rent agreement, either it will be an operating rent agreement, can be called operating lease, or any rent agreement will be a finance lease agreement. Okay? First, you need to know the nature of the lease agreement. As per the nature of the subject, you have to study the relation. The relation of Ind AS 40 is different in operating lease. It's different in finance lease. They both have different relation. Sir, we know this much. How? because we studied accounting standard 19 during CA Inter. Ind AS 19 also talks about lease. Okay. There is also about operations and finance. Okay. You must have heard the name. You have heard the name, haven't you? I have nothing to do with your old knowledge. You can focus on the concept. I am talking about the first case. What is an operating lease? What is finance lease? We will learn about it in 116. I am going to explain case of operating lease. Just understand whatever I am saying. Why am I repeating this? Because it automatically goes into students' mind that I haven't studied. Right? Let's continue. Say there is a company called X Limited. Company X Limited. Another is Y Limited. I have considered this as lessor. And this is lessee. Who is the lessor? Lessor is owner. Owner means it's a rich company. And lessee is the tenant. Lessee is tenant. And I assumed that it is an operating lease agreement. Okay. Let's understand what happens in an operating lease. First step. This is Y Limited. And this is the tenant. Y Limited will pay rent to the X Limited. Y will pay the rent to X Limited. Is this clear? But this is obvious that the tenant will pay rent. Company Y Limited will pay rent to X Limited. When Y Limited pays rent to X, it will be an expense for Y. And what is it for X? It's income. The one who pays, it will be an expense. While the one who receives, it will be an income. Clear? So the first issue is accounting of rental. Okay? Accounting of the rental. One is paying rent and other is collecting rent. It's the account of rental, right? Therefore, the answer is accounting of rental will be taken care by Ind AS 116. Why are you worried? On other hand, Ind AS 40 does not cover accounting for rental. The Ind AS 40 is called as investment property. 40 has nothing to do with your lease rental accounting. Ind AS 40 does not include in it. Understood? First point is rental accounting, which is covered by Ind AS 116. Let's see second point. The second point is the accounting of investment property. I have discussed about operating leases. Remember, operating lease. Okay? In operating lease, this X Limited, it will lease its property to Y Limited on rent. It's not selling. It's giving on rent. It's not selling. It's giving on rent. Why am I saying this? Who owns the property? Company X Limited. The property is owned by X Limited. Who has the property on books? X has it. Then, X is the owner and X has the books. Consequently, X will have to follow Ind AS 40. Investment property. And if we ask it that who will do the accounting for the investment property? For how much building was sold? How much is depreciation on building? Repair cost of building? How much is the building impairment? Related to building. All the issues related to the investment property. X will record it. As per the provisions of Ind AS 40. When we talk about lease rental and the rent from there, it's coming to our pocket. So, the rental accounting for these two, X and Y, will do it as per 116. So, please listen to me guys. If your lease is an operating lease, then there are 2 points in the operating lease. 2 points. I am talking about lease rental. Let's understand 116. 116 will see to it. But when it comes to investment property, the property's accounting will be done by the owner. Who is owner? The owner is lessor and the lessor is X Limited. So this, according to Ind AS 40, will do accounting for the IP. And reason is that in operating lease, we rent out property, we do not sell it. If I haven't sold the property, it will remain in my books. I am not doing the recognition of it. The property and the books are owned by X Limited because it is the owner. X will apply in AS 40. I hope you all know that in an operating lease we only charge rent. We only charge rent in operating lease. I had an apartment and I gave that apartment on rent. The rent started coming from it. It doesn't mean I did registry on another name. Ownership of apartment is with me. I will keep using 40. Rentals that we get, we will look at it as per Ind AS 116. The operating lease is purely your rent agreement, correct? The rent will come and go, that's it. The property will remain with the one who owns it. 40 will be applied by owner. That means I have 2 points, rental accounting and property accounting. Let's proceed further, guys. I have come to case number 2. We assume this is a finance lease. What kind of lease? Finance lease. One company is X Limited and another company is Y Limited. Let's assume this to be the owner and assume this as tenant. This became the lessor and this became the lessee. What will happen now? The first point. Who will do the accounting for rentals? Accounting for rentals will be done by Ind AS 116. Y will pay rent to X. So accounting for rental will be done by 116. Whether it is an operating lease case or a finance lease case, the accounting for rental in both the books. Ind AS 116 will look in the books of both lessor and the lessee. Ind AS 40 has nothing to do with accounting of rentals. Clear, students? Now second point. Who will do accounting for the investment property? Who will do it? Tell me who? X is the owner. The ownership is with X and X will do it, but no. You need to use your brain here. Why? This is a case of finance lease. We will consider finance lease as type of assumed hire purchase. Okay? Remember it? What we did in hire purchase? In hire purchase, money comes in installments. One is hire vendor and other is hire purchaser. The vendor books the sale and the purchaser books the purchase. And it keeps paying the money in installments with interest. A finance lease is termed as case of assumed HP. Okay? Whether you studied it in intermediate or not, you should have a basic understanding that in a finance lease, there is no rent agreement. Why? Because in a finance lease, then this becomes an assumed seller. Is this clear? What does this become? Seller. And this becomes assumed buyer. Why the word assumed? Because Ind AS 116 says that you all are misleading, fooling us. You had a hire purchase agreement. Some conditions in a lease include. There are some clauses in the lease that indicate you are not going to rent it, but your intention is to sell the property. Okay, students? I want to remind you something. Just like we have studied, major part of life. Let's say that the life of asset is 15 years. I have made lease agreement for 15 years. Asset's life and lease period both are of 15 years. So the asset will completely remain with the lessee. This means a tenant who continues to use asset for the rest of their life after using it for once. Lifetime. Then the Ind AS is suspicious about the tenant, that what kind of tenant is this that is not ready to leave. This means that asset's entire life is being consumed by tenant. Tenant is not like tenant, then he will be owner. And if we talk about the rentals, they are designed in such a way that it also includes interest and the full cost of the asset is also recovered. We will test all these points in Ind AS 116. Okay? You may remember something from intermediate. Therefore, a finance lease is a type of lease that is not considered as a lease, but we consider it as hire purchase agreement. And this is X Limited. When X gives its investment property to Y, then X in its books will derecognize it. It should be done. Now students, if you have identified a finance lease, then the lessor in the finance lease and the property in its books will be recognized, and this will pass an entry which will say that Y account debit to investment property. Okay guys, this will make a sale entry indicating that it didn't rent out the property, it actually sold it. It will pass an entry which says investment property account debit to X. And this X is, this looks as a loan in the books and it keeps making payments with interest accumulated on it. And what you call lease rental becomes installments. Okay? It is designed this way. Our issue is that what is the relation of Ind AS 40? And guys, why there is no relation of 40? If it is a case of finance lease. So, I want to request all the students that find out who has the property. Find out who owns the property. Does the property belongs to X? No. In the finance lease, X derecognized its property and pass the entry Y account debited to investment property. So when in the books, X doesn't have the property. So how will you apply the 40? 40 cannot be applied here. He does not have the property. Why? Because he is an assumed seller in finance lease. He derecognizes his property. Now don't ask me that. Sir, at what value will it be recognized? Why? To find the value, we will discuss 116. But I will tell you further. I will discuss this in Ind AS 40 later. Now don't chase after this value, just focus. Who owns this property? Does X have the property? No. In the finance lease company, X derecognized their property. Look, removed from books. And that property went to whom? To Y. Y is an assumed buyer. And it has passed the entry, IP to X. Now this property went here. So a question came to mind. This means that Ind AS 40 will work here. No. No. It's not that simple. Otherwise, why would I put very important here? The property came to him. There is no doubt about this. The property is now with Y. There is no doubt in this. But ask this from Y. That what will he do with this property? Y Limited. Why did Y Limited purchase this investment property, this land and building, under the finance lease? But why? Ask it. If we become auditors, we can ask. We asked, yes, tell me, what will you do? He says, I will use it for my business. I will use it in business. I will set up a factory here. Okay, so they rented this to build the factory. Means Ind AS 16 will be applied here. If he uses it in business, then 16 will be applied. Understood? I asked Y again. What will you do with this investment property? He said, I will use it in business. Sure? He said yes. Then I said apply 16. Means application of 40 is over. X had a property. He gave it to Y on a finance lease. It's over in X's books, means 40 is over. I asked Y that what would you do? He said, I will use it for business. I said, then if you use it for business, it will be considered as owner occupied property, so apply 16. But after a while, Y says, no. I will not use it in business. My intention has changed. Now I will sublease it. Jindal sir, what is this sublease? Sublease means I will lease it to someone else. First, Y took it on lease. Now I will lease it to someone else. I said, you will sublease it to whom? He said to Z. Then I asked, if you are subleasing, what is the nature of the lease? He says it's an operating lease. Okay, an operating lease is a rental agreement. Means, if Y leases to Z through an operating lease. If Y is subleasing it to Z through operating lease, then it clearly means that just rental will come, as I have just told you. An operating lease is a genuine lease. Operating lease is a genuine lease. We don't recognize the property and the rentals keep coming. Now you tell me that Y will sublease that property to Z, that too in an operating nature. So, Does Y have to recognize the property? So does Y. Does Y? Does Y have to recognize the property? Answer is no. Because in operating lease, property is not derecognized. Property will remain with Y. So we will apply Ind AS 40. Listen carefully. Issue of tax is over. We are with Y. I asked Y, what will you do with that which you bought on finance lease? He says, I will use it in business. Case of 40 is over. Apply 16 now and move forward. Accounting for rental is as per 116. And accounting of property as per 16. Ind AS 16. The case of 40 is over. X sold it and Y bought it. Y used it in their business. 40 is nowhere. 116 and 16 will keep going. But if Y tells me that I won't use it for business but I will sublease it to earn rent from it, then if they will sublease it, then I will ask them about the nature of the sublease. Why? Because Y will also sign a lease agreement with Z. When another lease agreement will be signed between Y and Z, now Y will become the lessor and Z will become the lessee. Do you agree? X and Y. Its first lease agreement. In two parties. Y and Z have done the second lease agreement between two parties. And Y Limited is, from X's perspective, the lessee. And from Z's perspective, it becomes the lessor. Understood? X, Y, and Z. First agreement was here. Lease agreement 1 and second one was here. They had the finance lease between them. After the finance lease, it is out of the picture. Property came here. Now they have signed an agreement among them. This is operating lease. So, do you know that in an operating lease, Y will be the owner of the property. Y will not recognize it because it has not sold, but rented it. In operating lease, it is not sold but rented. So Z will pay the rent. Y will take rent. Rent that will be paid by Z is expense in the P&L and rent that Y will take, it will be income in the P&L. It's operating lease. Then we will tell Y to apply 40. The property that you own, apply 40 to it. Sir. This could also happen. That Y will give it to Z on finance lease. Possible. X to Y then Y to Z. This is finance lease, it is out of picture and it came here. Then it gave further on finance lease. Now tell me, as soon as Y and Z will have a finance lease agreement between them. A finance lease agreement means that this is the seller. And this is buyer. This is also out of picture. Now who owns the property? Z owns it. Now ask Z what he will do. So Z's answer will be same as Y's answer. Either he will use it or he will sublease it further. You have to understand this chain. It's the point. I didn't tell you anything. I mentioned only two things. I'm starting from the beginning. I'll revise this in 5 minutes. I will summarize it. I just told you this. If you want to earn rental income, you will have to make a lease agreement for the rental. As lease agreement is made, 116 will be applied. You need to understand the relation of 40 with 116. 116 has two types of lease agreements, operating and financing. An operating lease involves two parties, lessor, lessee. So 40 will be applied. I am not talking about rentals. 116 will check the accounting of lease rental. Accounting of property is done in 40, so 40 is with lessor. Because in operating lease, the lessor he leases his property, he doesn't sell it. So the property is with him, it's in his books, he is the owner. He'll apply 40. It's a simple case. So if an operating lease appears in any question, so just remember the lessor. Remember whom? The lessor. The original owner will remain the owner. We will apply 40 on it. But when it comes to finance lease, there are two parties. One is lessor and another is lessee. This is out of picture because in a finance lease, it's a sale agreement related to hire purchase. It's not a rent agreement. It's like he sold asset and he bought it. Person who sold it is out of picture. So lessor is out of picture. Lessee enters the picture. If he says I will use it, then apply 16. If he says I will sublease it. So there are two parts of sublease. If he is giving on operating lease, then apply 40. If on finance lease, then he is also out of picture. He is also out of picture. Why? Because now you have Z ask him, what will he do? And Z says, I will use it. If he will use, then 16. He will say, I will sublease it. Then two issues, operating and finance. You still don't understand my point? In this long time, I have just tried to explain you only that. This operating lease agreement. That is our rental agreement. The operating lease agreement is our rent agreement. Because the owner will follow the 40. He is owner. In the finance lease, you can assume that you sold your asset. Now your story is over. 40 can't be applied. And you have to go to lessee's books and ask him, what are you going to do? And you have to work according to his intentions. He can use it. He can give it on operating lease. He can give it further on finance lease. If he uses it, then 16. If he gives on operating lease, then 40. And if he further gives it on finance lease, he is out of picture, then third person will come and we will ask him what will he do. This is the relation. What does people do? They don't listen or understand these concepts. Just create a flow chart and story ends. In 2 lectures, investment property is over. But if you want to discuss these topics, then it takes time. And I can advise you to increase the speed. But I can't advise you to skip anything. I will check every corner of the Ind AS to see what is written. Do you understand? It means assets can be sold in the finance lease. In finance lease, the assets are sold. Lessor is no longer involved. Lessee is there. In an operating lease, only think of the lessor. And in a finance lease, think of the lessee. Ask lessee what will he do. I mean the lessee. Lessee of the finance lease. He can use 3 Ind AS. If he uses, then 16. On operating lease, apply 40. And on finance lease, move on. Because on a finance lease, the person who gives the asset is out of the picture. He becomes the seller. So we need to summarize these things. I will help you make the notes in such a way so you don't have tension. I will show you in form of flowchart. I will give you a summary. You went for the audit of a client. You are working in a good firm. And you don't know about these things. There's no need to study the Ind AS. Some students ask me to give helicopter view. I don't have a helicopter view. I have ground floor view. And write this. As per the provisions. As per the provisions. Rental income. Can be earned. As per. Terms and conditions. Terms and conditions of Lease agreements. Which is entered into by the parties. As per Ind AS 116. Lease agreement can be as per Ind AS 116. Lease agreement can be entered into the following headings. We can create this under two headings. What are the conditions of operating lease? What are the conditions of finance lease? How to identify lease agreements? Everything is in 116. You will see it's given in practical questions of this chapter. Is the agreement operating or finance? We will deal as per the agreement. A. B. Finance lease. Case 1. Operating lease. In operating lease, the owner of the asset, I mean the owner, whom we call as lessor, who don't recognize his property, he is not considered a seller. He is just renting it. He was and will remain owner. It will be in his books. And he's making rent, that's it. He has no intention to sell it. So it will follow 40. Under. Operating lease agreement. The lessor. What does lessor mean? Owner. Will keep ownership of investment property. Do you know why the word itself is used? Because you know that application of Ind AS is on companies. Company is an artificial body. So itself word is used. Himself, herself, Ind AS is not applicable on individuals. Will keep ownership of IP with itself. It means that investment property is not derecognized by the owner at the time of Lease agreement. Lease agreement does not derecognize the property and maintains the ownership. To understand its relationship, it will be like this. (40) Ind AS 40 and Ind AS 116 under operating lease. There are two cases. We're either in lessor's books, which we call as owner, or we are in the lessee's books, which we usually call as tenant. There are two things in its books. Apply Ind AS 40 for accounting of investment property. It will only follow Ind AS 40. Apply Ind AS 116 for accounting of lease rentals. Ind AS 40 has nothing to do with lease rentals. 116 will deal with it. Ind AS 40 only deals with investment property. Two cases in its books as well. There is no accounting for investment property because lessee does not have asset, does not have IP in its books. No accounting is done. There is no accounting for it. If I have rented an asset, then I am the tenant and I have to just pay my rent. I have nothing to do with property. But apply Ind AS 116 for accounting of lease rentals. Lease rentals. 116 lease rentals. 116 covers rental accounting. 40 covers property and will deal with lessor. No accounting. But in second case number 2, finance lease. This is somewhat important. There are chances of getting it wrong. In this, you will have to chase the property to find out who owns it. As per provisions. Of Ind AS 116. Lessee is considered as an assumed buyer and lessee will recognize investment property in its books at the time of lease agreement. It means that lessor will be considered as assumed seller and it will derecognize at the time of lease agreement. One has become a buyer, one is a seller, one will derecognize, one will recognize. Please pay attention to the words. He'll recognize and he will derecognize. Derecognize means bringing out of the books and recognizing means bringing into the books. Understand the relation. Ind AS 40N. Ind AS 116 under. Finance lease. It has two cases. It has two cases. Lessor, lessee, lessor and lessee. We have two parts to this. Lessor will derecognize the investment property, due to which property will not exist. in its books. No application of Ind AS 40. And an entry is passed over here. Let's enter this. Lessee account debit to investment property. It's an entry for accounting of lease rentals. The interest which will be charged as installments are called rentals, but the accounting is like installments. A table is created in which we allocate the principal and interest. We'll learn this in 116. So accounting for lease rentals. Is 116. Now we will see lessee's books. Lessee will recognize investment property in its books, and we will enter here in the books. Investment property to lessor. Okay? This just looks like he has borrowed an asset and he sold on credit. He'll make the payment by giving interest and he will receive the interest. In finance lease interest accounting is done similar to hire purchase. Now there are two cases. I don't have space, I'll move to next page. Take accounting notes like this. Going to next page. If lessee will use the property in business, if he uses it in his business, then we will apply Ind AS 16. If lessee will sublease the property, what would happen if he subleases it out? If he subleases, there will be two scenarios. Either it will be an operating lease or a finance lease. If it's operating lease, Ind AS 40 will be applied. Why? In operating lease, he was owner and will remain so. He won't derecognize. Property will be with him. And in finance lease, ask new party. The use of asset. You'll ask the new party. Ask. Here instead it should be new lessee. Because if it is a finance lease, right will be transferred from him to other, then we will ask other. Let's move on. Let's write here. For lease rentals. It will apply. Ind AS 116. Okay. Now here, I taught you concept number 3. Also relation of Ind AS 40 and 116. In an operating lease, hold on to the lesser, he is the owner, will remain the owner and apply Ind AS 40. In finance lease, if you go to lessee and ask him what will he do? He will use 16 in the business. If he subleases under operating, then 40. If under finance, he'll ask third person. You will have to follow this chain, students. Let's move on. Interesting concept, right? Alright. You might think what questions are asked on this. The questions on this will be theoretical. One will be on a case study. And you just have to chase after the property, investigating who has it. And based on that, you just tell the application. Now, has a question ever come up from this? No. It is possible. It hasn't come yet. But the concept is there, right? You have to understand it. Let's go. Let's move on to concept 4. This concept is over. Make a heading on fresh page. Write concept number 4. And I have various issues. My point is not finished yet. I have a lot of cases related to investment property which should be in your knowledge. So I've created a heading, various issues. And I am at point A. Let's move on. Okay. Let's say there is a company called X Limited. A company X Limited. This company has bought 15 flats. 15 flats. And these 15 flats were let out to its employees, to directors, to its managing director. They were let out. Didn't understood? The company purchased 15 flats and they let out those flats to their employees or management. Now think about it. That they let out. Now will they receive any rent or not? If yes, then how much? Doesn't matter. You have let it out to your employees. You can take full rent from them. You can charge them less rent. Or even if you don't charge them rent. It doesn't matter. Ind AS 40 clearly states that if you let out any of your property, if you let out to any of your employee or any of your management, then by default we will consider it to be an owner occupied property. We will consider this as an owner occupied property. And on this, Ind AS 16 will be applied. This does not fall under 40. If any company lets out any of their property to their employees or to their management, the rent amount doesn't matter. The rent can be at the market price. It can be less than market rate or you can give it for free. It doesn't matter. Just apply 16 straightforward. We don't cover this under Ind AS 40. Here it's a debatable issue. Debatable issue is that students many times text me saying, Sir, suppose you have charged the rent at market price. Even if we rent it out, we would still get the same amount from the market. If that same rent amount is being paid to you by your employee or by your director, then why aren't you considering this as rent and why aren't you considering it an investment property? If you charged less rent or gave it for free, then it will make sense. But if you are charging full rent from them, then why aren't you doing this? Then why aren't you doing this? So the logic behind this is Ind AS 40 is just not ready to accept this fact that you will charge full rent from your employees and management. You are saying that the full rent is being taken, but you are not ready to accept. He says it is impossible that you will take the entire amount from your employees or directors because you have to make all of them work in your organization, and if you will charge them at the market price, then they will never be emotionally connected with your company. If you will benefit them a little, then they will think about you. So it's just a thing to say that rent is at market price. We don't accept it. Because company works for the welfare of its employees and management. Sir, what if we prove this point that the rent is coming according to the market price? Even then, Ind AS 40 has completely rejected this case study. So please understand this fact. Rule is rule. Whether you are convinced or not, the rule is made, so you have to follow it and understand the psychology behind it. Ind AS 40 is just not ready to accept this, that you are getting your full rent. So understand one thing. If a company has provided any property to its employees or management, that is called owner-occupied property, and we will deal with it in Ind AS 16. You don't need to see rent. Write this in your notes. I will tell you about many things like this later. Investment property, which is given to employees, if any property has been provided by an entity to its employees or management, then such property will be considered as an owner occupied property. And we will apply Ind AS 16. Note: as per the provisions of Ind AS 40. As per the provisions of Ind AS 40, it does not matter that it does not matter whether the entity is charging full rent, concessional rent, or no rent. This thing doesn't matter. If you have given any property to your employees, then it will be studied in 16. And we will consider it PPE. And PPE stands for property, plant, equipment. Let's move on. One more case study. At point B, let's say there is a company X Limited. They have purchased some land. They have bought around 10 acres. The company bought 10 acres of land. And the auditor of the company is asking them that why did you buy this land? An auditor of the company can ask the company why did they purchase this land? Because he has to comply with Ind AS. If X says, if it has been bought for appreciation, it will come under 40. If we build a factory, then it will be under 16. As he will tell his intentions, then Ind AS will be applied. So the auditor asked X that, what will you do with this land? There is no answer. They are not answering. The auditor asked again, what are you going to do with this land? They say we don't know yet. We will think later. It means that the management is not at all willing to tell you about that. What will they actually do with this land? We call it land acquired with we haven't actually decided this yet. That how will we use it? So, Ind AS 40 says that if some land is purchased and we are not being told about its use, an entity says that right now we ourselves don't know why we bought the land. We will decide later. Then, consider this from the perspective of appreciation. If you are not specifying any use for the land, then price will automatically appreciate over the period of time. So we will keep this land, for which the management is not able to specify its use clearly, under 40. We will consider this under 40. This will come under 40 only. When you go for the audit of any company, if you see any land there, and you ask them what is its use, but they are not telling you. They are saying that they will decide later or haven't thought about it yet. So it's under 40. It will only get appreciation and nothing else. Write it down. Land acquired with write in this. as per the provisions of Ind AS 40. Land with will be classified as an investment property. It will be covered under it will be considered that it is held for long-term appreciation. We'll assume that this is for long-term appreciation. Sir. I have a small doubt. What? Sir, you said land whose use is unknown. Then it is also possible that we bought a building and we don't know about its use. You only talked about the land. Building can also be without explanation, right? So Ind AS 40 has not discussed anything about the building. Ind AS 40 discussed about land. That you bought a land. If you are not able to specify its use or you haven't decided yet, keep it in 40. There's no discussion on building that you purchased a building and you can't specify its use. So what will we do? So if 40 did not cover the building, then they might not want to consider building as an investment property. I'm telling you this from my perspective as it's not written in rules. So whatever is not explained is based on interpretation. Interpretation can vary from professional to professional. There's no fixed rule. So if you have a building and you can't explain its use, and it's neither mentioned in Ind AS 40, then take it under 16. It is part of PPE. Okay, write note here. Because if the building had to be covered in Ind AS 40, it would have covered buildings. If there is no explanation on the building, you have purchased a building but you are unable to specify its use and this is not mentioned in 40, then this means that Ind AS 40 does not apply. So it will automatically be covered under Ind AS 16. Write in notes. There is no explanation. In Ind AS 40 on acquisition of building it means that we can consider. Application of Ind AS 16. If you have given any of your property, if you have given your property to your employees, you take full rent or not, or take less, doesn't matter if you give to employee. So that is PPE. It will be covered in 16 and 40 will not be applied. If you purchased land and you are unable to specify its use, then 40, where it will be applied, where it will not. You have to remember these points. I'm saying the same thing for so many years. You have read, understood, forgotten. You have read, understood, forgotten. No use of studying like this. No knowledge without memory. You have read it, then understood it, and retained it. And make sure that you revise it at least twice. That is your asset. Read, understood, and forgotten, that's it. The story ends here. You have to keep all these things in mind. Let's move on. We have came to point C. On point C. In point C, it's mixed property. C point is about mixed property. Let's do one thing. I will hold this point here for once. Earlier I thought I would teach you 4 to 3 hours today. It's okay, we are just starting the syllabus in first couple of videos. It's normal, there is no problem. I am holding this here. If you feel like you have any difficulty understanding, you don't feel any fatigue, you can click on the third video. In next video I will continue from here only. So revise everything that I taught you today. First is Ind AS 40. And check the link for 116. Please revise the point about employee property. And one point about land, revise that as well. In the first few lectures, we tend to pick up speed. Okay? So from here I will begin your next lecture. I will end today's video here. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye. Love you all. Bye.